She was a Hollywood star that fell in the direction of home.
Question on everyone's mind is, what happened to Carolini?
Excuse me, Miss Carolini? Can I have your autograph?
But the town of Willow Falls still just knows her as Ness.
You brought Carolini to our studio.
Yes, I did,
It's
Eli.
amazing.
And Eli, please call me Ness.
Oh, you want Ness.
When she left home, she found merciless fame.
You'll never be anything more than a junkie.
She returned home and found merciful forgiveness.
God is the strength of your heart if you let him be.
This town loves your dad, and by proxy, you.
I owe a lot to John. A lot of people in Willow Falls feel the same way.
What Ness didn't realize was that she would be bringing a bit of Hollywood home with her.
We're gonna make our own movie right here.
Willow Falls is making a movie, huh?
You see, this film is about Willow Falls. Shot in Willow Falls, about and by the good people of Willow Falls. Oh, sweetheart, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life.
We'll praise you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus, God the Son. Thank you, Jesus, God the Son. We thank you, Jesus, God the Son.
Hey, he's best friends with Jesus, you moron.
That's what you got, branding everywhere.
I got that tattoo, actually.
Show it, because we have cameras now. I have a friend that has a tattoo on his ass. He does not work at Susie Q's, though. Ladies and gentlemen, listeners, lovers, and friends, welcome back to the Prod. I welcome you to the show. We got a great lineup for you today. We're already halfway into it, and we decided just to kick it in. Coming to you up above Dave Grohl Alley from Two Ticks and the Dog Productions in beautiful downtown Warren, Ohio. We have the beautiful, talented, wonderful actress. Why are you laughing, Wally? You think I'm introducing you?
Yes, I did.
You have a special introduction.
Oh,
Don't worry. I picked up on what Bill was laying down before we started rolling. Susie Q's. We have the beautiful, talented, wonderful actress, Ashley Rozzi, here with us today.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
welcome to the show. We have the wonderfully talented, third time on the show. I want to do this.
Oh.
William. Oh, no.
Oh,
William. Victor Schotten. Bill Schotten, director, filmmakers, cinematographer, pretty much jack of all trades, and master of some. and director and writer, yes, and DP of the upcoming Abiding Nail.
Bill in over his head shot.
I love that. I'm writing that one down too.
There you go.
And to your left and my right, the newbie of the bunch, who should probably have some overnight success, which we've already talked about. He's very popular wherever he's hanging out because his name is now on the movie poster.
Yes.
First film ever, Mr. Wally Red Carpet Valentine.
Thank you very much.
He's going to be on there. Yeah, well, thank you. You guys are too kind for showing up today on a very dreary and rainy day. My sinuses are a little funky, so if I sound different, it's because of the outside weather and not the Colombian coffee that we're all drinking now.
I like this Colombian
Delicious,
brew.
by the way.
Well, I've been living I was living in a flea bag hotel for half the week, so it's nice to be in like clean facilities. You know what I mean? Because of the power situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that. That was an adventure, man.
Oh yeah, man! The wind came through. Finger of God destroyed the power infrastructure in Hubbard and displaced me, my wife, and my dog to the Comfort Inn, which was about a 6x6 cracker box with cockroaches.
No, it wasn't. You didn't have
Awful.
cockroaches.
Are you back at home now?
Yes. Yeah.
You
We're
didn't
back.
drink the water out
I
there,
did. I drank a lot of water.
Oh, jeez. Not out of the fountain, I hope.
It was
Out of
at
faucet.
it was the East Palestine water.
Oh,
Out
boy.
of the toilet.
Nobody wants that shit, man.
No.
We didn't brew that with this.
No.
Oh yeah, I
This,
forget.
yeah, don't worry.
No, no.
That didn't come out of the sink here either. This is
Listen,
bottled
this is
water.
from. Oh, okay. This is from Meander Reservoir. Is
No, this is now. So my wife makes me, which I'm a water junkie, anyways. You know, it's kind of weird saying it like that, but like I went through multiple different filters. The Pure, we had water softeners, the Brita. Now I'm on the zero water filter. So
Yeah.
you fill that thing up, and it's got like a little tester. It sends a little electricity through it, and you get like parts per million. And
Oh,
stuff.
ionizer, or what do they call it? Yeah.
It's not it's not an ionizer. No, it just filters everything out, like a lot of junk. You know, when you get the water test back from your municipality, it'll say like ppm, how many parts per million, like the allowable limit. The allowable limit. That doesn't mean you want that shit in your body.
I know, right?
So since East Palestine, my wife is like, make sure you look and which I do anyways. I'm a label reader. I'm not getting any water that's like flowing downstream. So it's yeah.
That's
think
good.
about
That's
that.
good.
Yeah. Be safe. Safety for my guests.
You're so kind.
Well, you're welcome.
Once again.
I want to talk about a lot of things. I really want to talk about. So listen, for everybody that's out there, prodders out there listening, as Wally destroys the set. Bill has been on 2 times, like I've mentioned. I love you, Bill, but I know your story. We got a lot of history together, and you can listen to those, and I encourage you because they're great episodes. Actually, Bill was the first guest of the show ever.
Really?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, the number 1 episode, which for 3 years, if you Googled the show, it was called the Prodcast. Bill Schotten episode 1 was like the log line of every episode.
Wow.
Because when I first put it, I know what the hell I was doing, and I was like, they're like, "What's the show called? What's the subtext or whatever?" And I was like, "Well, it's episode 1, Bill Schotten."
How many have you done so far?
This will be once this season is finished, we'll be over 100. I think we have 77 shows right now.
Great.
You know, I mean, as I'm recording these, I've got more, you know, because it's not live. I've got a couple in the can. So I don't know. You guys are maybe like show 80 or something, 81.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. So yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, there's a few. My goal was to get to, once I got past season 3, I was like, I can't stop here. I got to like at least hit 100 and then, you know, see how it goes.
Yeah.
So Bill, you're in all these episodes. Bill's a filmmaker, okay? Ashley has been, I said Ashley. I don't know why
I like it. I like it.
Hello, Ashley. Ashley's been in a bunch of Bill's films. We're going to get to that. But I'm interested in this Wally red carpet Valentine.
Oh, boy.
Because, first off, Wally, where did this come from, this idea that you were going to act, and how did you guys hook up? Because having been in the film, right, we're all in the film together, Wally was, like, so good in all the scenes, and I was like, where's this guy at? I'm going to try to keep it PG because the subject matter that we're trying to put out there, The Abiding Nail, is a PG kind of movie. And, you know, with Wally's sensibilities in terms of Susie Q's, you know, we got to make sure we keep it, try to PG. But where the heck did you come from, man? And how did you get interested in all this stuff?
Well, I volunteer at the Pregnancy Help Center with Dad Ready. And Bill does a lot of the production videos for the Pregnancy Center. And they wanted me to do a little 3 to 4 minute clip on abortion recovery for men. That's something that I deal with at the Pregnancy Center.
Oh.
And so Bill,
like as a counselor?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Bill comes in and has everything all set up, and I come in to do my video, and we kind of chat for a few minutes. So he said, you know, let's go, let's shoot. And 4 minutes later, did one take, and he looked from behind the camera, and he goes, wow, you speak with a lot of emotion, you know, a lot of expression in your face. And he said, you ever act before? And I said, no. I said, I always wanted to. I always thought it'd be something that'd be great to do. I was always fascinated with how you put movies together.
And you have dashing leading man looks.
No, I do not.
He does.
I think he does.
He does.
I think he does. Yeah.
And so,
Very handsome.
And so after I stopped laughing, you know, he said, you know, I have this thing I'm putting together, and you would be perfect for the father role of a young lady who's going off to Hollywood and her life trashes and she comes home looking for redemption. And would you be interested in reading with the leading lady, which was Ashley? And so I thought, I'm retired. I got nothing going on. I said, that would be fun. I'd love to do that. And so we set up a time a couple weeks later to read some lines together, and I thought it went really well. And so he said, you got the part if you're interested. And I said, definitely.
Wow, man.
Yeah. I've never done anything like that, ever.
Well,
before.
I'm not, bullshitting here. Like, we've been around the business, commercial. Bill's a very accomplished filmmaker, commercial, the whole deal. Same deal. I was like, where'd this guy come from? Like, when we got to the thing, I'm like, what the, again, trying to keep it PG. But
well, I'm just add sort of how we ended up to where Wally gave his testimony, and I said, is it? I go, was that a transcript? His thoughts were really organized, and I said, did you write that and memorize a transcript? And he says, yeah, mostly. I got most of it. And I'm like, that was like 4 pages a copy that you, and we're not talking script pages. We're talking about paragraphs.
Yeah.
And very eloquent, didn't trip. I was amazed at it. And I let Ashley know. I said, I think I found our John Shostrom for the film. And at that point, we'd already secured investment. We had set up the LLC. I don't think we had set up the LLC yet for it, but I do think we had gotten the investment for it.
Yeah, that's what you said.
And Ashley had somebody else in mind, and initially, she
really,
I didn't know you.
She didn't know you. Okay,
it all comes out now, Wally.
I am hurt.
I was just on the hunt. That's all.
Yeah. But I'm like, no, just trust me. Meet Wally and read. And the second we met at the Great Room down at Old North, and got together. The second they read, I'm like, this is it. Yeah. This guy's the guy for it. Perfect. And it was his, and he was. He was John
Shostrom. Like, as soon as we read together, I'm like, yeah, he's it. So
there were parts where because we shared scenes, I didn't feel like I had to really act. Like there were parts where I was like, not to give anything away. I don't want to give it away, but you have some pretty emotional scenes, and I was like getting kind of. I'm a sensitive guy, anyways.
Yeah.
So,
we can tell.
Yeah, but I was getting emotional. I'm like, man, this guy's like, it was great. So that's always curious to me, because I think part of the idea of the show is to kind of promote what people are doing and give positive energy and kind of feel like you're a conduit of information. And so for people that, which is I think is what's cool about this episode, is like for people that are interested in production and movies and acting and stuff like that, like Ashley's got like a laundry list of credits and experience over the course of 20 years.
Yeah.
Close to it.
Yeah. Some of those we don't even talk about.
That's okay. We all got our projects that are, we've shoved in the corner. But for Wally, it's like so new to him, and for somebody that would be like trying to get into something like that, that experience is interesting to me, and I think would be interesting to those that would be seeking that knowledge.
Well, I mean, excuse me. I mean, it was very intimidating. I was scared to death.
Couldn't tell.
I'm an introvert. I'm not an extrovert. I don't like to be up in front of people.
Also,
I don't
can't
like
tell
to
that
talk.
either. Yeah.
I just don't. And the first day, when we started shooting, it was okay. It was between me and Ashley, but then there's 20-something people outside the scene that are watching you, and that was very intimidating. And I'm looking over past the camera, and I'm looking at these people, and I start getting freaked out a little bit, because never doing this before, and then now you have to have these emotional scenes in front of all these other people. And I'm just praying, God, I just don't want to suck. I don't want to be the guy that everyone says, oh no, that's.
What was the first thing we shot with you, Wally?
Yeah, thank you.
What was the first thing we did?
Well, the very first thing was walking her to the truck. She was going to the airport.
Was that the first thing we shot with you?
That was the first scene in the morning. But then that day
was the rain scene.
Oh gosh!
Oh wow!
And this is
the most intense scene.
Most intense scene. I'm looking at Bill, and I said, "Could you give me a couple of weeks for this? I mean, you're just throwing me into the fire here." I said, "I got to do the."
Amazing.
It was crazy.
And I think that too, Wally. Just to build off what you just said, how you're an extrovert. You're more of an introvert. You don't like being in front of people. I think that also is what makes an actor great. And I'm saying a good actor doesn't do it for the, oh, look at me. An actor, when you create your character, it's, you create another human, you create a human being, you create this, and you let that play out on screen. So if you're always thinking what other people are thinking, I think you can see that in performances. So when an actor, like, I think Al Pacino is one of the greatest actors, and he's like that. He's not an extrovert. He's in that, because it, first of all, gives you more time to build your character. You're not worried about what people think. You're really going with the natural flow of developing your character.
Well, and there's something that the people see that's happening. It's not just your, I'm so sorry, like there's something that's happening behind the eyes, and the audience is seeing the process, which is what humans do. Like, as I'm talking right now, I'm processing this information, and it's, it's kind of the same thing. It was very, I'll kind of dovetail and pong it over to Ashley, because to give a little bit of history, right? We've all, Bill and I have worked together, and Ashley and I have worked together with Bill on the previous film, which we'll kind of get into that too, was Wormwood's End, which, thank you again. Bill brought me an awesome poster that you guys are going to see hanging up in here of our last movie together, which is a total 180 from The Abiding Nail. But we'll get to that. So, the growth that you both have exhibited over the course of those, did we shoot that in 2012?
Yeah, that was, we shot it the summer through the fall of 2012. Yeah,
okay.
So it was exactly 10 years.
10 years ago.
Wow.
So, that, to see the growth potential, obviously, in your process and, like, the organization, I mean, it's a whole different, this was like showing up to that set, to the Abiding Nail set, was like, all right. No, I get it. Not that Dead Life 2, Wormwood's End was bad. It was just it's more like we went from summer camp kind of to like, we're in the picture shows now.
That's a good way to put it.
Without like Jim said, without rehashing, but when we started Wormwood's End, I had yet to even begun working professionally, technically. I wasn't. That summer was when I quit my job and worked full time, and I didn't realize how little I knew about production until I started working full time in it. And then I realized that the films I had done over the years were missing a lot of important elements. So, which is why interesting. 2012, I worked professionally for 10 years. We tried something in 2019, and we shot a proof of concept called for a project called The Day of the Lord, which was an eschatological.
Was that the Jesus movie?
Yeah, that's the one I reached out. I mean, that's yet to be made, but then there needs to be some work on that. But it's in Ashley, in you, Jim, which performances were good in Wormwood's End, but when you brought what you brought in the character of Stu, it was.
What a name.
It's polished, polished.
Stew. That's what you eat.
It's just
on a cold day.
Stuart. it's there's a polish now to the two of you that.
Thank you.
You guys. It's just like, I hate to say this about my own work, but when you look back at Wormwood's End, it's okay, but it's today with the new streaming sort of business model, you got to be great right out of the gate, and we shot that thing on toy cameras pretty much, and with a very small budget, but this time it's now we had to, it's like shooting in a different universe now. Everything has to be as perfect as it can be for people to watch it. And I think it's not technical, it's more performance than anything. And that's what I think was super important with the skill level that you and Ashley and Wally brought, and everybody else. I mean, it was the cast was solid.
Cast was good.
Yeah.
Cast was good. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Jim, because you were so natural in your performance, and you just seemed to come on with ease. Like, you never seemed to struggle. Like, it flowed from you. So just because I love acting and I love backstories and I love to hear, what was your whole process to building Stu, and like bringing him?
Thank you for those kind words. I'm actually, which is I think why Wally and I hit it off so easily.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm actually an introvert too. You'd never tell, like you could never tell about Wally, but I have to I had to work on all of this. Blah blah blah. I was always like that, but like going in front of people or in front of the camera, it's all happening inside, right? A lot of people can't see it, but it's there. The difference I think between Wormwood's End and this project, aside from like the raised level, not only of the acting, but of the production and the process and the, this was my first paid acting gig, other than paying, myself if I'm doing, you're working into the budget or wherever. I mean, I guess that's not necessarily true, but certainly my first paid acting a gig for film, like for a performance other than like a commercial. So there was a little bit of like, this is awesome. Number one, I felt like I'm so grateful that you offered that and called, and like, it was like the appreciation. You could have paid me $5 and I probably would have been there. It's just the validation, like, oh, I'd been on stage. I had just done a show last year at the Robins, and that's the other thing. Doing the part for Wormwood's End, I really like not having to like lug gear and worry about sound and be behind the camera and did we get it, and it was just like I got to worry about this one lane, and if I just stay in my lane and I'm prepared, cool. So I did that on Wormwood's End, but like I had done so much more being on, I had worked for Ron Sinicio he directed us in Waiting for Dark at the Robins. Being on live, a live performance is different than than being behind the camera. Yeah. So that kind of bringing that process and then ping-ponging off of you guys, and that's kind of where like you always had natural ability, I think, but the fact that you're such a student, and that was relevant and really apparent. I knew that you were always prepared for when you came to set on Wormwood's End. But when we kind of did, I don't think we zoomed. Did we zoom, or did we?
We did zoom.
When we rehearsed,
FaceTime.
we FaceTimed.
I keep running around the mic.
And that was so like you were already so deep into it, and so then I was like, obviously I had my shit up anyways because just took it from PG to PG-13, but I wanted to have my shit up anyways because I knew the level was raised, and I think it's just being prepared. Like I was very prepared, still nervous on the inside or whatever. But like when we did that rehearsal on the Zoom, it was almost like this will sound weird. And certainly when working with Bill again and showing up on location for the first day, it was like kind of coming home. It was like a kind of like, oh, this is cool. Cause we hadn't talked in so long, 10 years.
Yeah.
And so then doing that Zoom and kind of do the rehearsal and like seeing, I'm like, oh, this is so easy. Plus the fact that Bill basically cast, my son goes, well, you're just playing yourself, Dad.
Yes.
And I go, I'm not really playing myself, but it's not a fucking stretch. And it's a guy that's got a production company and he makes commercials and it's in the 90s.
Yeah.
The only thing was the stretch was feeling 35. My character's 35, which, I was telling him the other day, I go, man, they were talking about, because my son was like, my son was just cast in a commercial.
Nice.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
he's been in a couple commercials, but
That's great.
He got actually paid like a nice. In fact, I was teasing to him. I go, dude, you're making more in half a day than I made on a whole day of. This is not a knock, but on a whole day of film.
No,
I go, I want to get some of that action.
I want to
too.
know where he's getting this money from.
Yeah, I go, I want some of that action, man.
That is great.
Yeah, so he was like, well, Dad, when are you going to act again? I go, I don't know. He's like, when? Because people have been asking when the film's coming out. And I said, I don't know. They're talking about, they were already kind of talking about a sequel or whatever. I go, this guy better hurry up, though, because this ain't going to look like 35. It don't look like 35 now, but it ain't going to look like 35 much longer.
You look young. You're good. You got time.
I'll probably have to cast his son to play this.
Except he's blonde and blue-eyed, man. Yeah. He looks more like Hanton. I wanted to do a thing with Hanton, Mike Hanton.
Yeah.
With a project where Hanton plays...
my son plays the younger version of Hanton, and then Hanton, you kind of do the zoom in on the eyes and morph, that kind of deal.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Let me ask you that question though.
Yeah.
And let me get into because again, and everybody that has seen you in these projects, even at the Canton not the Canton Film Festival, the Canton, when we premiered Dead Life at the Canton Palace Theater.
Yeah, it was the Canton Film Festival, wasn't it? We weren't participants. We were featured.
Okay. Yeah. So even at that, when we were walking away, because I was pretty hammered at that thing.
You and me both.
And but it was so apparent, like Ashley was the star. I mean, Bill, you were good, right? I was okay. We were there was good acting in it. Mike was good. I mean, but like everybody that I went with was like, she's really good. And then when my wife started seeing like some of the I'll call them the dailies, like you'd sent me some stuff, and I'm like, and then she's like, she's so good, like. How did you start in the acting thing? Kind of give us just a little bit, because I think it's like relevant, because it was just like you started kind of in a sense like him, but now it's like I'm really into this process. I'm saying you're really into this process. It's great because you respect the craft.
I do. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
When I started, I was awful. I think Bill just cast me because I was available initially in the very.
She was pretty.
I was good, yeah, and she's not hard on the eyes.
No, thank you guys. No, that was I was not. And then it had been so long because I did a project. I'm in Pittsburgh now, so I did a project out there, and it was not a good time, and I mean it was awful, and I was like, wow, if this is acting, I don't know if I ever want to do this again.
Was that early on, or this is in between?
This was 2020 actually.
Oh, okay.
And so
this is in between these other projects.
Yeah, and it was working outside of Bill, and I'm not saying but it was just like it was a very bizarre experience. I never really seen anything like it, and it was just strange. And I was like, wow, that wasn't acting. Like that it took all my creativity away, and it was just not good. And then I did some other things. We both worked on someone else's project, so we did some other things. And so I was just kind of like acting. I've always loved acting since I was so young. But it was like, a lot had changed in my life. Like, so, Christ saved me in 2017, and I knew like things that I would now do would be different than what I've done in my past. And it became, I wanted to do things that glorify Christ and what moves the kingdom. So when Bill wrote The Abiding Now, I was so excited, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And, so I just kept practicing and rehearsing. And at the time I was looking for an acting coach. I couldn't find anybody. And the first day on set of The Abiding Now, I was so nervous. Like I was so rusty, I felt. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I was praying. I'm like, just praying, Jesus, please give me the skills to do that. Like I felt like I was so, I felt that I wasn't like delivering in the very beginning. I was so nervous. And from that point on, I just started like really delving in and dissecting my character. It was like, he did answer my prayers, so I was able to, and just really go really deep with the character. So yeah, that was kind of how everything happened for me.
You had the relationships down of these characters like very early on, like in our rehearsal, like you were like, hey, and this happens and that happens, and I'm like, oh yeah, I did read the whole script, but I didn't, the first time you're reading it, you're kind of like reading for your parts, like where am I at, how am I going to say this, and that kind of stuff. You had a very early understanding of the dynamics of the characters, their friendships, their histories, that kind of stuff. So I thought that was like, at that early stage was like impressive. So you had a good foundation, I think, to probably build on.
Well, like the conversations that happened from the inception of this, generally I would leave Old North on Sunday after working, and I'd have a conversation with Ash on the way home.
Old North is a church.
Yeah,
that's some of the locations that we shot at, and where Bill,
yes, sir.
Bill works. You see on his T-shirt for those of us watching video.
Oh.
Yep. Shout out Old North.
Shout out Old North. Yeah. So I said I'm going to do this short, and it was based on the Many Nails, right? It was based on that. It was either based on that or the Big Nail.
It was the Big Nail. It was Nick's sermon.
Yeah. So I was like, we should do a short on this. And the shorts, I went home and I started writing. I'm like, no, this is going to be a feature. So
That's right, yeah.
I would honk out like 7 pages and send them over to Ash. Honk out another 7 pages, send them over. This went on for like 3 or 4 months till I had the final draft on it.
Which is very quick, by the way, for most writers.
Listen, and I never did like drama. Like, turns out I don't really do horror that well, I guess. Is that... Not
true. And I don't think so.
Well,
Not true.
Wormwood's End is the only decent. I sent her. She was a huge part of the development of this, and then eventually, I think it was the mid-September, I decided, me and Stacey had gone away on our anniversary, and she proofreaded it, and I fixed all my grammatical errors because I'm terrible. I'm barely graduated high school, and she fixed everything, and decided it was time to go out to some people and try to see if I can raise some money. And the initial idea was just to raise it like $20,000 or something, and just to kind of do it really super cheap, that sort of thing. But we got some. I ended up bumping into Andy, who's a good friend of mine, Andy Rackstad, down at the Old North, and we had a brief conversation. We both know Jay Zetz. You remember Jay Zetz?
Sure.
We both know he's married. He's married to his wife's sister. I think I'm saying that right.
Andy's wife's sister.
Yeah, Andy's wife's sister is Jay's wife. So, so we would start talking about the old days and how me and Jay used to make movies and stuff. And he goes, "Well, you got anything going on now?" And I'm like, "Well, I got this Christian film I'm trying to do, faith-based, something in the faith-based realm." And he's like, "Well, send me a script over. Maybe I want to invest in it." And I thought, okay, well, yeah, he'll probably just want to kick maybe $1,000 or something. I didn't know who Andy was. I really didn't know Andy that well. And after, I think I had come down with COVID and I was dying. It was bad. I had that Delta variant, and it was killing me. And I'm laying there, and I get an email from Andy saying he was interested in investing, and he thinks he can get the whole, what we were really asking for to make the film. And which I'm like, wow, I was only expecting $20,000 or whatever, but without going into what the film actually cost, but. Sure. It was the full investment. And I'm like, oh, well, me being as sick as I was, I sort of panicked a little bit and almost told him no. Because I'm like, I can't do this. I can't be responsible for this much money. I mean, we're used to making films for, $5,000. Yeah. Of course, the only one who was really privy to this stuff was, of course, Ashley, because she was already very much invested in where we were going with it. So, and that's sort of how, when you guys, by the time you guys had your meetings or your Zoom videos, Ashley she'd been buried in this thing. I mean, she was a massive part of the development of this character. And here's the thing. Yeah, I already knew who I worked with over the years. You, Jen.
Yeah, I already knew.
Jen Milligan, Ashley. And what I did was I cherry picked. You were supposed to be Bruce Willis, Wally. So, sorry. Sorry. When I wrote it for Bruce Willis, and he was like, I don't feel well.
I'm close.
But the idea is that find the people who were solid, and if you're going to step out and make something and try to make something that lands, you got to get your best people in front of the camera, and that's what we did. So the people that made, I don't want to disparage, and then some new people came along too, the Ross and Laura Lee, who were instrumental in making this.
Even Andy was surprisingly good
so
too.
Good.
I was like, where did this guy come from?
Yeah, he's like the sweetheart of this movie, right?
I love that.
He was, and I was not expecting Andy to be so good.
He was excellent.
And, that's what Ashley Campbell, who worked on the film with us, who was wonderful. But she said he's the sweetheart of the film. That was the term she coined.
Yeah, and Ross with his Scottish accent.
That's funny.
That
character's funny.
That character sets it apart. I really can't see any other faith-based film that has sort of the weirdness of
zany.
It. Yeah. So and then so Bill Long. Who he hauled my ashes through this thing, man. It was
great AD.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have sustained.
You guys were such a great team because he kept everything moving, and when you had to do what you needed to do, he was doing to keep everything just on time,
Yes.
working. I mean, he was just, he never stopped working.
He took over. It took him maybe 2 shoots to jump into sort of a leadership role, and by the time he hit his stride, which is pretty quick, Bill, we had already gone off and shot, like early that year. We had gone off and shot Josh Manning's Christmas movie. We were just hired.
Shout out Josh Manning.
Yeah,
What's up,
shout
man?
out. We love you, Josh.
Great dude.
And which in fact, like Bill and I learned a lot on that shoot. That was a first time I stepped on a shoot that was like where like, they
had big money.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It was like, and they were like, and I got to work under Joanne Hawk, who was like really, I mean, she's really cool. She really knows her business. Good leader, good, amazing cinematographer, and just knew how to, and working in those cold conditions. Yeah. Well, from that point on, Bill was like, I had him like working with our equipment, the equipment we worked on there. And that was the idea. Like we get him working with equipment. By the time we hit the rolled cameras, Bill knew what to take out of the truck. He knew how to set it up. He knew what to do. And, none of us are spring chickens, man. Well, we all need help. I couldn't have done it on my own, man. I was dying out there. But the team, the team was amazing.
Wait, we got to talk about the craft service table.
Oh my
Justin
gosh.
laid it out.
I was going to mention that.
My gosh.
I know,
I'm
it's
sorry,
awesome.
Because it was just every base was covered, and
Yes.
it was really cool. It was.
I'm still trying to drop weight.
Well, what was cool was like, Ashley and I are very in tune to diet and things like that. And I was like, you get to craft services, you work on some projects and it's like, you got some Snickers bars and it's all kind of junk, going there, it was like, oh, there's a couple things for me here.
Yeah,
Very cool.
And that's what Justin was so conscious of, that and so considerate. Like I remember he whipped out a box of protein bars and gave. I was like, oh my goodness, thank you. I know, right? I love that we could have vegetables and even like those little fruit those like little fruit pack things. I mean, it was super cool.
He had bananas and apples, and I was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
A lot of times like people, you get some pizza or like. I think we had Kentucky Fried Chicken a couple times on the.
Yeah, if anything.
Yeah.
Usually it was like, hey, you guys better pack a lunch if you want to eat, because
right.
They're about to shut my electricity off. So.
Right. The thrill and joy of indie filmmaking. Yeah. But I want to go back a little bit because we touched on it and we talked more about like the present. How did you get involved, Ashley, in acting? Like, how did that? Take us from like 19. We were talking about that earlier, however that process started.
Well, this is kind of a funny story. So I was just out of high school. Like it was, I think the summer I graduated, and I was working at a tanning salon. And my mom had heard on the local news there was an audition for a movie. So I faked sick to go to this audition.
Liar.
Yes, I was. And they had already casted all their leads, but it was a female director, and she liked me and said, well, I'm going to put you, I have a part for you.
Tell us the name of the show if you want to reveal it. Can you talk about it?
Yeah, it was called, well, it never came out, but it was called Last Dying Breath.
Okay.
And so I
Is
ended up.
Kulianis in that? Why do I remember
so
this?
this is the story.
Okay.
So I ended up getting the lead role, and so I was playing. Keep doing that.
It's all
I
right.
keep hitting.
It's rental grade, as Bill would say. It's rental grade. Everybody was kung fu fighting.
I should probably sit on my hands. So Dominic, I ended up playing opposite Dominic Kulianis, and he was doing Dead Life with Bill, and Bill happened to come out on set that day, and he goes, I want you to meet someone. He's like, this is Bill Schotten. This is someone you're gonna want to know. and
Very big deal.
William Victor Schotten.
And you know what's funny? How true those words would ring. Like not only in the film business, but throughout our friendship. And Bill was very instrumental in leading me to Christ. So like those words would have such a deep meaning, and it's just funny. Like I remember him saying that, and I'm like, at that age, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, so maybe Bill put me in one of his movies, and that was like the depth of
big dreams.
Nice. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and so after that, then we worked together on, I think Necrotropic was it?
Yeah.
And then Sabbath. which he had. It was for like another director, a female director.
No, she was the producer. Laura Seeley was producing,
and she already had casted the lead as well. And then what? Go ahead.
So like I'm like, okay, well I'm setting the schedule, and I can't remember what the girl's name. I think it was Michelle was her name, and I says, well, tell Michelle she has to be there at 8:00 on Saturday morning, and she comes back and says, well, she doesn't want to be there at 8:00. I'm like, well, what do you mean? That's when we're starting at 8:00. Okay, just tell her like 10:00. She's 10 is a little early too. And I'm like, oh, she's fired. I know just the girl.
But you had to like find my phone number. You didn't have it.
I don't. It was written on a scrap of paper somewhere, and I finally turned it up. I'm not sure how I found it.
And then from that point on, he called me, and then we just kept working together.
Yeah.
How many films have you guys done together?
How many?
Let's see, there was Sabbath, Necrotropic, Dread, Bloodlock, Silver Cell, Below Ground.
Below Ground, yeah.
Wormwood's End.
And The Abiding Now.
8. This is 8.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm curious about this too. Like, what's the difference from those first couple of, I know it from my perspective. What's the differences that you see in Bill's process and filmmaking from those first few films you worked on now to this, aside from the subject matter, which was grossly different?
Right. Honestly, quality. Like, Bill does not, from where it was like fun, good times, and it's still fun and good time, but now it's on such a higher, it's like preschool to like doctorate, right? Like it's just a world of different.
Dr.
Like,
Bill shot Dr. cameras.
Nice.
And that, like I've seen, so
I've
seen some stuff from The Abiding Now that he shot, and it's art. It's truly art.
Yeah.
Like before, it was like, oh yeah, just squirt some blood over here, like,
Is it in focus?
and but it just he has studied and worked so hard as a as a filmmaker and it's not about, it's really each shot, there's the quality, and he doesn't cut everything. I mean, just the finest detail he pays attention to, and that wasn't early on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, we didn't have the budget or any experience. I mean, you shoot all the time. That's what you do. So, but it's just worlds of difference. Like,
I'm going to require everybody refer to me as the professor.
I like that.
I agree though with what you're saying. I mean, that's kind of what I see too. I don't want to blow Bill's head up, okay? But like,
too late.
The symbolism in this movie is apparent that there was a deep thought put into that versus, obviously the material is much different, but Bill's, I think. I'll use that word like respect again for the craft. Not that you didn't have respect for the craft before, but on your earlier stuff, it's like, which is what I see in some of my earlier stuff. Sometimes I see some of my earlier stuff and I like kind of cringe because I was like after a shock value, or I was just trying to make noise in a room full of other filmmakers and people to get attention so that I could deliver them the message, right? And not that wasn't there before to some extent, but you're just trying to. I don't even want to refer to some of the stuff that happened in these zombie films because it's like some of the cut that you made on Wormwood's End. I'm like, I can show my son that now.
Yeah.
Some of the first version of that film, that ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
I don't want to show anybody that. Like that's not that. I don't. I don't want to show. My grandma's not watching that. Okay, right?
Yeah.
But now it's like. The detail and the respect of the craft and maybe the message, there's more thought. And you've gotten much better as a writer because I think you've put more emphasis on like, we're delivering a story. You want to make it look a certain way and you want to make it, but we're delivering a story, right? They always talk about films being made of like these three facets, right? Production value, star value, which is the acting, right? Or the star, None of us are stars yet. Ashley's probably the closest one. Certainly after this film, okay? The bar will be raised. But, and some films get made on that, right? So like a Tom Cruise movie, right? But you have the star value, but you have the story value. And I always put in my, because I'm a writer, I think at baseline, I'm an artist, but I'm a writer, right? Is the story value. I think in the past, it was production value and kind of like the shock of it. And now it seems to have shifted, and you are writing. Like when I read this script, there were parts of it where I was like, you know, as with all things, you're like, okay, I think I could say this different if I'm playing this character, whatever, which is great talking about the experience because it is fun. Like I've worked for a couple directors where I had to tell them in the rehearsal process where they're cracking the whip and it's like, and you're like, wait a second. Like the minute this isn't fun for me, especially in like a you know, a gratis, you know, pro bono portion of it, or you're getting, you know, nothing or next to nothing. It's like, wait a second, I'm here because of the craft. I love it. The minute it becomes not fun for me, I'll still be here, but I won't be here. I will be removed.
Yeah, because they take that part away. Because part of it being fun is the creative process.
Yeah.
And when they remove that, you're like, oh, okay, well, just tell me. I'll just be mechanical. Tell me what to do.
Right. Well, and that's what was cool about, like, even I keep saying Dead Life too, but even in Wormwood's End, you know, it's like, hey, man, he's like, hey, the script's a living, breathing document. Just say it how you'd say it, you know, and that kind of wisdom to allow the performer to have, you know, obviously if you're doing Shakespeare, you're doing something where you have to get from A to Z.
Right.
Hey, you've got to say, just make sure you say, even like on this project, make sure you say whatever it is. But if you can float a little bit, boy, don't only feel like appreciated as a performer, but it's also like fun because you're given that creative process.
And you have the freedom to do it.
Yes.
Yeah. Once and that's what happened with the one production I worked on. Well, a couple I've worked on actually that were like that. But they it stifles all the great. You're just like, oh well, it's gone because they don't give you that freedom, and that's what's beautiful about acting is you get to bring your character to life. You get to put your spin on it. And I think for the most part, you know, I listened to one of the, you know, from the Lee Strasberg school. I'll listen to I'll watch some things.
I love that you're into all this stuff.
I love it. Well, it's so fascinating to me. But he said, I think it's David Strasberg. I think it's Lee Strasberg's son.
Okay.
He said, I like to be surprised. I don't want to tell you everything. Surprise me. He's like, directors like to be surprised. And I think that's so true because like good they want to see what you're going to bring as a performer because they're like, maybe I don't know what direction, like, you know what I mean? Maybe they had a direction in mind, but now you did something that's going to spark something. And they're like, oh, wow, okay, let's build off of this. So I think when somebody's controlling every move, that takes that surprise factor is just gone.
Lenten time or anytime, Station Square Seafood is delivered daily and always prepared fresh every time. And now to go with your salmon, swordfish, or any favorite dish, Station Square's small batch signature seasonings. Lemon pepper, Cajun, or charcoal steak rub.
Need great food fast? Visit mysalvatores.com and order anything on our menu for a quick pickup. All of your favorites ready when you are. Specials available on mysalvatores.com. Order today.
With that buzz of select Brazilian Dolce coffee beans that brew Ipanema's seductively sweet beach coffee, they mingle a flawless measure of their crisp Darlene lager. Somehow, somewhere in a secret lab with modern methods, they blend a perfectly balanced, light, uplifting, gold medal winning brew known as the Percolator. Available at Modern Methods Tap Room or the new Darlene Lounge on Courthouse Square in downtown Warren.
We had a great cast, but there were two people that would give me what I wasn't expecting. Okay. And I think it might just be the nature of the people, like the personality wise. Like we all sort of look like me personally when I'm reading off a script, or I would go for the low hanging fruit if I had to be in front of the camera. Like, you know what I mean? Like the thing that is like, well, this is how this person would react, right? But Ashley and Jen would generally give me something I wasn't expecting. Jen would I'll give you for instance, like Cleve Hammer does sock somebody in the face, and everybody else is like, Jen starts laughing.
Yeah. I love that. I love
I'm
that.
like, wait a second. That was, and I'm like, oh man, I'm glad. And she would do that. She would laugh at people.
Jen was really fun to work. We had this like natural.
Yeah, Jen
she was
Milligan.
really fun. Yeah.
So another longtime alumni. Going way back. You may not have worked with her, Jim, but you were in the same film as her.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
She was one of the Wormwood girls.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yep. She's like in the cage.
She's the cover of your poster.
No.
Yeah, she's the girl. She's the
bride.
Yeah, she's the bride.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. No, that's because we had her on a full face.
Isn't she? She's not in the thing where you guys are. She's like in the pen with the girls in the pen.
No.
Okay.
She gets killed in the woods.
Oh, gotcha.
I know what you're talking about though. Yeah, but she's one of the Wormwood girls. I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote that thing. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, it's dark and it's about the end of the world, kind of thing. I want to touch back real quick to answer a question you had asked earlier too, because I want to give credit where credit is due. We were talking about being introverts, right, and kind of having a nervous thing, or an anxiety-driven thing where you're like, oh, I'm on stage or I'm in front of people, and are they judging me, right? I did one workshop, which actually helped me get cast in the play, Wait Until Dark, with Austin Pendleton, who's a friend, and we had worked together on a project together. He's a phenomenal actor, right? He's, if you don't know, he is Wally. He's from Warren, and he's the lawyer in My Cousin Vinny, and he's the professor in the movie where the guy's the genius.
Super recognizable when you see his picture.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I've seen him in a dozen things, right?
Yeah, he's a Tony-nominated stage. I mean, I
didn't know he was from Warren.
He's from Warren, yeah.
We should get him in something,
bro.
Yeah,
no doubt. So he did a workshop at TNT, and I went there, and I did kind of playing the same modality of playing yourself, like in this film. It was the scene from Glengarry Glen Ross, and it's the Alec Baldwin scene, which they actually, Mamet wrote that for the screen. It wasn't in the original play. And it's, coffees for closers. And you get to play like a sales asshole, the guy who's the, put that coffee down, that kind of stuff. He's berating the group of, hot box salesmen, talk about being in a shoebox, and they're all kind of like trying to make this big sales pitch so they can make their numbers and not get fired, right? And he just beats them up, and it's fun. And I just embraced my inner asshole because it's there, and I fired away, And I'm in a room of all experienced actors in the theater, and Pendleton's conducting the workshop, and I'd worked with him before. We were friends. In fact, we came and did the show afterwards, and he goes. And everyone was kind of like, I don't want to say I knocked it out of the park, but it was lit, it was lit. And he made me do it again, sit down, so I couldn't use my physicality. And I was like, oh, I'm in trouble. Mm-hmm. And I think the second one was even better because I had to then kind of channel it. But he had said to the thing, he's like, you had stage fright. You were unsure of yourself because I don't know if anybody else could see it. He could see it. He is a incredible actor and acting teacher. I mean, he teaches in New York, and he's an incredible guy. And he goes, you were dangerous. You didn't know what you were going to do, and they didn't know what you were going to do. They kind of sensed it. But you just, like, embraced it. You just kind of, I kind of remember thinking, like, I'm just going to go do it. I mean, I'm not going to think about it. So I started to kind of embrace that part of it. To your question earlier about you just kind of showed up and it seemed easier or whatever. Obviously, years behind the camera is one thing that was kind of makes it easier too. But just the idea of going like, there's a great line in Risky Business, and it's Tom Cruise, and he says, they deliver it twice, and he says sometimes you just got to say what the heck, and his buddy goes, sometimes you just got to say what the fuck. And that's how I felt, and that's kind of how I went, and I felt like everybody was really kind of in that same, not because they didn't care, it was like you got to be free of that, and everyone was trying to knock it out of the park. I mean, I really felt like Andy Pivarik, who came on and did like a couple of scenes, right? I mean, I felt like he was so intense on that. He played the mayor, right?
Yep.
he was so like into it, and everybody seen Andy,
Rexstad.
Yes,
Yep.
so into it. Like everyone was so prepared. I was. It was cool. It was a cool vibe. That was a great.
I tell you again, that comes like I didn't know how Andy were gonna do because I never worked with them before. But I wasn't really worried about the cast knowing their lines, and even like for instance Ross, who he's fairly new at this, at this acting thing. He's done a couple things before. Some of it was his own stuff, some of it was other people's stuff, but the fact is like he's all in, right? He's like, I'm all in. I'm gonna
all the chips in the middle.
Yeah,
and he's a wild man.
He's crazy.
Yeah.
So and he was gonna
talk about a guy that embraces that line from the movie.
He does. You never know what's gonna come, which is pretty cool.
He's almost dangerous, right? I mean,
dangerous, right?
What's he gonna say next?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the like Wally, like the memorization skills I do not have.
I'm sorry.
Let me ask you, why don't I get you a baseball bat and you could really destroy this microphone?
This is what's funny between you guys have like this patter that goes, and he's always like after you, Ashley, like always not berating you, but like chiding you in a fun way.
I like to call it, it's berating. It's berating.
Yeah.
It's because I'm so klutzy. Like I'm hitting I don't even know how I'm doing it, and I'm sitting down.
It's so funny because like you're the star of The Abiding Now, okay? You're the lead, and here's Bill, and everyone's there, and like, some people would probably have the tendency to like walk around kind of on eggshells. Like, how do we approach her? She's the star. You know what I mean? Obviously, you're not like that. You're very approachable. And there's Bill, like, all right, let me see your armpits. Did you shave? Okay, good stuff. Like, I'm like, oh man, he just doesn't give a fuck. He's just going like, I would probably be like, hey, he just like right out in the open,
That's fun.
That's why, like, I know when I need advice, I call Bill because Bill will be like, "Yeah, you're an idiot. You are an idiot. Don't stop."
That's true friendship, right there.
He'll go, like, my favorite is, "Okay, let's do that again and try not to suck so bad." And I'm like, "Okay, you got it."
Well,
but I appreciate it.
That's a good quality because you need that trust.
You do.
And that's another thing where I think everybody trusted you. Like, you have to, and you're giving me direction. Like,
I know.
We're on there naked.
Yeah.
But we're on there naked. And when Bill's giving feedback, it's like, if you don't have that director trust and that vibe, which I think that's what's really cool about you guys as filmmakers together, because it's so apparent. Like, I'm excited. We'll get to that later, but I'm excited for like the next one, the next project to see how you guys.
Right on.
Yeah. And that is, I do appreciate it. Like, I will always welcome constructive criticism or anything to make me better. And that's one thing about Bill. I know he'll never tell me something if he doesn't mean it. And that, I appreciate that so much because it's really hard to find that. Like, I don't need to be shined on. Like, I don't want to be, and you can always see through it too. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I do appreciate
that.
Yeah.
And there is some of that as a director too, that you do because you want to build confidence. It's like building a prize fighter. You don't throw him in there, against Mike Tyson the first 10 fights. You build him up. You throw against guys that he can probably beat the first couple and then get back. And so when you're dealing with like inexperienced people, now you're a big star, Wally, red carpet, Wally Valentine.
Yes, he is.
I love it.
When you're dealing with people who are, they have that even more because they're not used to it. That I don't know I'm naked. I know I'm naked. I don't know what I'm doing. And so you do have a tendency to kind of, for me at least, I want to build that confidence and build them up. True with Bill, like still build the confidence. Oh, it's great. Sometimes I'm like, shit, is he even watching this thing? Like, but then other times,
I was wondering that myself. I would think that.
Other times, he'd be like very specific, and it's not like that. It's like this. You're like, oh, okay, I got it. Yeah.
So Wally is like working with Wally because it was his first time. We keep reminding Wally that he's new at this.
Newbie.
You know what? Even though you're new at this, Wally, like there were moments in the John Shostrom sort of microcosm of his like
John Strostrom's Wally's character. He plays the father.
Yes.
So where where I didn't want Wally, I wanted John Shostrom. And sometimes you had to hit him with a bat to break him of the habits of going for the low-hanging fruit, like being me, right? So because Wally wasn't written for John Shostrom, like you were written for your character and Ashley was written for her character. Like, again, that was a whole different character. And to take the first guy, or to take the guy's first experience, and him be the odd man out from everybody else because I didn't write this part for Wally. Wally was casted for that part instead of the other way around. I mean, I had a certain like type of, it may not be accurate, but Wally did it. Yeah, every now and again, like I said, you had to kind of pull him out of his own comfort zone and put him someplace else. But he did it, and he shined. So good job, Wally.
And that goes to that's acting, and it goes to having a good director that can bring that out. Like, it goes to both for an act, because I used to teach at Barbizon, and I'd always tell the kids, like, acting is listening. Acting is being able to take direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So much of acting is nothing. You're not saying anything at all. So that is, that's your first time, and you got that right away to be.
Yeah, I mean, we had that conversation, and you helped me.
Did I say that?
Yes, you helped me to understand that. He said, you can't be thinking about what you're going to say next, what your next line is. Just feed off of what I'm saying, what you were saying to me. And then that's how that dialogue goes back and forth. And so once I started thinking about that, because that's what I was doing. I was thinking, okay, my next line, when she's done, I got to say this. And I think you can pick that up on the camera when you're thinking of what you're trying to say next.
Because it pulls you out of the scene.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So you just had to be more natural, more, just let it flow, let it happen.
And that was great. That's why I love working with you.
Right.
Like, I'm like, Wally has to be in everything too.
And
everything
then
we go from here.
Bill made it very, he said, he goes, I'm not a writer. I said, you write very well. But you even told me, he said, that's not my first thing. So if you want to change the dialogue, feel free to change.
Just get me through the door, baby. That's it.
So all you people are is meat hanging in my set. What is the line?
It's a live. Yeah, it's a real quote. You people are merely meat to dress my stage, and I expect my meat to hang quietly in the corner until I need them. So there's a scene that's apparent, like in this exercise of interaction, of listening instead of like reacting. And you guys haven't seen this scene yet because I haven't made it public or said anything over. It's the one where you guys are speaking to each other in the barn and reuniting, and it's probably it's an incredibly authentic moment between you two, which is like, those are hard to get. Like, we source this entire thing locally. This is like not an easy thing to do in Youngstown, Ohio, is to aggregate. Like,
or is it?
I don't know, man. It's like, I don't know. Maybe it is.
A lot of new production, a lot of new blood, and a lot of stuff happening since when we first started.
I know. There's a lot going on out in Columbiana.
Yeah.
There's always been. We could probably talk about local production.
Well, I didn't want to take you off that. I think you're going to say something about the authenticity of that scene.
It was just it was.
Because I want you to shine me on a little bit.
There was, I guess the word is chemistry.
Bring it back to me.
There's a skill level there that I found that every now and again I'd raise an eyebrow and go, well, I expected it to be good, but I didn't expect to be impressed.
Yeah.
So that's nice. You always expect it to be good, and if it's not good enough, we can't leave until it's good enough, because we're up against some pretty stiff competition. I've been scanning the film festivals to see what the last year's winners were, and I'm like, man, I mean, our little production, we're up against like $2 and $3 million productions that have people in it you actually recognize. So we are definitely Five Stone film. The name Five Stone really adds up. That was David's 5 stones. He picked up to slay Goliath, but he only needed one.
Symbolism.
So symbolism, and we might need all 5 stones.
Well, like I was saying earlier about how when we first started, you're trying to sometimes make enough noise and shock people to get the attention. Now the field is even back then we were just breaking into everybody kind of being able to make movies. I mean, that's why I was even able to do what I did with Wax and Gibbous, right? I mean, now it's everybody can make movies, and there's a lot more people doing it. I don't necessarily think that, that the talent pool has gotten better. But it's definitely wider, and it's definitely, there's more people doing it. And so you got to be that much better. You got to have that much more production value, that much more story value, and that much more star value or acting value. And so it is going to be difficult, but I think this film really is, I don't know a lot of like the pure flicks, that kind of, my cousin knew that. We were talking the other day, and she was talking about the film, and I said, it's kind of, she loves like, she kind of equates it Hallmark or, pure flicks. I didn't know, that's not my area of expertise, or I don't watch a lot of that stuff. But seeing the dailies, and, let me use that term, the dailies, and the quality and the acting, like you're saying, like, I'm like, oh, this should be good. And there's a different spin to it. You talk about the cleave hammer, the kind of the zany interjection. You don't see a lot of that. Wow. And the fact that, of course, it's a redemption film. I want to mention this, though, or I want to ask this before I forget. You had mentioned like David and the Five Stones, and where's the abiding nail come from? And kind of talk a little bit about that symbolism, how you worked the idea of the message, right? Because that's a space where you guys we all four can relate to. But the message of Jesus, and where did the abiding nail come from?
So the two stories that relate to nails in the script, the large nail and then the many small nails when Lila plays the young version of you. These are stories that are told, like, I don't know where they get them from, but like a pastor will interject when he's doing a sermon. He'll interject an interesting story. Sometimes they're funny, but sometimes they're very thought-provoking. And both those stories are pastoral stories that are told during sermons to keep things interesting and to keep people engaged. They're old stories, are really, really, I mean, to the point of where like the story about the large nail and the where he hangs a dead dog on the nail itself. That goes back, I mean, I don't know, maybe 100 years. I mean, they just sort of been handed down, and pastors tell these stories. So and I heard the stories. I'm like, that's kind of neat. And I thought to myself, how do I work this into like a modern day scenario? And once I started writing, it just flooded out, and I'm working on another one like that right now, where the writing or the stories just sort of flowing. For a project called Sunny 16, and the environment of faith-based films has changed tremendously over the last, I don't know, say 5 years. Like, you had a lot prior to that, like a pastor's getting the idea, we're gonna make a movie, and we want to set out and make this movie because we love Christ, and we think we should shepherd the project, and we'll direct it, and we'll get somebody from the congregation to shoot it. This guy has a camera, right? And so, but the problem is now you have pastors making movies, okay? It's sort of like me watching Good Will Hunting and deciding I'm going to be a mathematician, okay? And and when I went to high school, my math had words in front of it like shop or basic. Just because I want to be a mathematician because it looked cool doesn't necessarily mean I'm qualified. Well, just in the advent of bigger budget faith-based films, they've started hiring real production people to shoot these things, to write them. Mm-hmm. And they pretty much just shepherded. They raised the money. They work in a producertorial capacity. So now the competition's super stiff. I mean, if we would have made The Abiding Nail 10 years ago, it would have been a no-brainer that this thing was going to be a full. But now we have to, when we release this, or when we release it to the film festivals, I mean, it has to be as perfect as we can possibly get it. And that started in the chaos of production. That was, you remember, that was like, we got it, it's raining out now. What do we do? When we were out at the park shooting, and it's like, we just got to get it. We got to get it in the can. It's got to be as perfect as we possibly can to compete. So now, the faith-based world is so different today than it was, just a handful of years ago. We got a lot of competition out there, so it's got to be good.
Well, you gave me a compliment one time. We were talking about Wax and Gibbous, and we were talking about when you first saw it, Reverend. You're like, "Oh, the shots were so inspired." I remember this. I was like, "Oh man, what a cool thing to say!" Like, it's the same way how I feel about this film. Like, it feels like, and maybe that's the nugget that makes it different. Is like you were inspired, and it's a very ambitious project. I don't want you to, for your mental health, get caught up in this idea that it's got to be perfect, because some of those imperfections make it interesting, right? Or they're I used to call it the hand of God. Like, I don't know how we got that. You were talking about it earlier. Like, God gave me what I need, not exactly what I wanted, but He gave me what I needed. And like, because is that chaos of production and how you handle that. Even earlier, as the camera went off, on the thing, it's like you're gonna have these things where like you prepare for it. Something's going to go wrong. There's a bug in the machine, there's a hair in the lens, whatever it is. Somebody just noticed it. The person you were saying like was in the background in the window. How did you not see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And those kind of funnies, but how you react to it. And certainly now you have a wealth of experience, not only from the movie side, but just 10 years of production, producing stuff for your own company, professionally. You run into this stuff all the time. Like, I don't think like, I hope nothing goes wrong. I think when something goes wrong, I got most of this other stuff covered. I'm gonna roll with it.
Yeah.
Because that's all you have to do. That rain scene, it was like, we got to do it, so let's just roll with it. Yeah. And you never panicked. I never saw. You may have been panicked on the inside. You're a good actor as well.
We had chest pains that we were like, we think you need to go to the cardiologist. Let's talk.
I'm like, I can't. I don't have time. Okay, I got to prepare for next week.
I'll never forget. I promise. After the movie. Well, he's like, guess what? The chest pains are gone.
So I guess this is a good segue on the chaos of that summer, right?
Yeah.
So my life is without the abiding nail in it is crazy. Like, I work full-time at my film company, and I work part-time another 20 hours for Old North currently. Now that's changing. I'm going to be working full-time in the world of church. I'm going to be the full-time tech director, and I'm still going to produce part-time. So
congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a long road, but so I was working a full-time job plus a part-time job plus another full-time job in the abiding nail, preparing. It was round the clock.
Which is probably like 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah,
filmmaking is not easy.
It was fun and terrible at the same time. I don't know how to explain it.
You always said it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. You always said that.
Yeah.
And I honestly, it was amazing how you got through, and I think the only way you can get through is through Christ. Like, I don't know how else you could do it.
Chris Drombetta, the executive pastor at Old North, he kept coming up to me. He goes, "You okay? Are you okay?" I'm like, I'm fine, man. Everything's good, buddy. And I go, why? He goes, I'm just worried about you. I'm worried about you. And I'm like, I must have looked a little unhinged at some point, but. Man, we did it, and without the aid of drugs and alcohol, we did it.
Amen.
To our credit, because there's sometimes like in the past where you like, it's a party. We talked about that party, party on the set kind of thing, and that was cool about this is like, did Ross end up having like a big rap party or whatever? I know that was
no,
because he's like, we're gonna blow it out.
Well, he had a Halloween party.
Okay,
and I think that was as close to a rap party.
But I don't think. I mean, I wasn't able to go. Ashley wasn't able. So I don't know if it was really a film part. I mean, it was more just Halloween party, I think, right?
But a lot of times like you'd have these artist types, especially when you're younger and you can recuperate faster and all this other stuff, where you'd have that environment, even on the set or afterwards. This particular thing was like everybody showed up straight on their A game, want to get this thing.
It was business.
It was all business. Yeah, it was all business.
And I think.
But fun.
It was, exactly.
I've never had more fun than I did last summer.
Yeah, me too.
When you held it together, I didn't, in the chaos, however you grew from your experiences was very evident because it was like, hey man, this thing's screwed up, and it was like, okay, Bill's off fixing it, and we're off doing whatever. And then you came back, and there wasn't like, because you've been on sets where people are like, they don't know what's going on. It's
he's always measured. He is. He's always in control. It's always like he just handles it. And I think that because of that, we as cast and crew and we always feel very confident because we have a strong leader. And I think that's super important. I think when the leader looks crazy, that's when it creates all this among people, and it can get a little what's the word, just
dramatic.
On
set you want drama on the screen, you don't want it on set.
We need to run smooth.
Can I just take a moment to point out, and Ashley, you'll agree to this, the calming nature of a Wally Valentine on set.
Wally
was great.
I don't know about that.
How many
He's bringing
times
that counselor experience to the process.
how many times did I say to you, I don't think I could have done that without Wally? Didn't I? And I did, because I said,
That's so sweet.
I needed you. Like Wally and I would be like, my head, I'd start getting in my own head, and I'm like, and Wally and I would walk away, and we would pray
together, yeah.
And it was just, oh man, we needed it, because there was a lot of things that could have been like I remember at times in trying to prepare, and everybody's coming up, they want to talk, like I can't think straight.
Want to be debt-free faster, save money in taxes and insurance, and retire with more wealth? Call Zach Byler at Green Life Holdings today for full-service financial advisory. 330-219-5225.
Top Shelf Bar, 450 wines on hand, and your choice of local craft beers, including Modern Methods Brewery Double IPA, now available at the Station Square Restaurant.
If you're looking to buy new or sell your current home or commercial property in Northeast Ohio or Northwestern Pennsylvania, look no further than Brokers Realty at brokerssold.com.
So, okay, walking off to pray with Wally it was so, it would help pull me back into character, because a lot of times I get very frazzled in my own head, or get in my own head, because as soon as you stepped away, people would just keep coming up and talking. You couldn't even like think of the net. It just became sometimes it was very overwhelming, and you even tried to like put us in spaces so we wouldn't be. And I love talking with everybody, but it was a huge distraction when you're in the middle of filming, especially emotional scenes. Like I remember the scene where it was really emotional. I found out something about my dad, and not to give anything away, and like the person on is like trying to make jokes, and I'm like, please stop. Like I was really emotional, like crying, and I'm like, I had to like turn my back to that person because I couldn't let that happen. So that was that did become an issue. I mean, and I think we never had thought about that would become an issue until it did.
Well, this was a super learning experience at this level. So it became like most of because I'm a tech guy, I'm a production guy, my experience, what I see as important, or what I saw as important until cameras rolled, was that I got to make sure we got all the dolly tracks working. We got to make sure we have everything on the truck. We got to make sure the cameras are functioning, all the batteries are charged. There's 1,000 things. But then you start to see, well, we have these. I'm going to call these guys like these paintbrushes. These people that make the art, and it's a very emotional film, and people tend to not stop talking on set. It's like, so like Ashley will be over in the corner, and somebody will be talking, and let's talk about this and this, and you'll hear her on the mics, like, because our little Rode lav units never stop recording. So every now and again, I'll be scrubbing, looking for a shot, a particular shot, and the best possible audio for that. And you will hear Ashley and Wally praying together. You'll hear.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so it's in future. I think we're going to have to. And I tried to mitigate some of that. Like, like for when we shot at the Fin and Feather shoot. I tried to set up a tent so you guys could. It starts raining, and you guys, it's like, and there's like 30 people there, and they all see Ashley. And you gotta admit, when you're on the set, she looks like the star of the movie. I mean, so everybody comes over to talk to you. that can be a problem for the person who's now spent emotionally, and you know,
you're trying to stay in the pocket and the groove. I mean, I felt like maybe sometimes people, and I didn't, because I felt like I needed to be in that pocket to match her thing. I removed myself a lot of times.
I was like, "Oh, Jim's got the right idea. How do you do it?"
Jim would go lay in the grass.
In, right?
Yeah,
sometimes.
That was smart. I saw it. I was like, "Ooh, I was."
He would become inaccessible, and I think that's super important.
I felt like probably the people I didn't know, like I wasn't worried about you guys, but I felt like the people I didn't know, there's that inner space where you're, that were like, oh, he doesn't want to mix with us, or he's aloof or whatever. But it wasn't that. I needed to stay in that pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I saw that I'm like, that was smart. I wish I would have.
So I think it's going to be important, and this is, I guess, going back. Like, well, why do they have to have a trailer? That's why. Mm-hmm. Why does that actor need a trailer? So they can go and prepare and not have to engage. Because when people talk, and I noticed that the people that were the talkers, they had a difficult time performing or remembering their lines and that sort of thing. So the less you engage, if you're an actor and you're looking for some advice, just try not to plug in before your performance. Try to unplug and go off on your own. Jim, I think you had the right idea. You go lay in the grass, just kind of close your eyes. And I think that was pretty much messaging to say, not right now. Just everybody go do your thing. I want to be left alone. And I think it's important. And I think your self-control is a problem.
Well, this is it. I do enjoy talking to people, and I
have no self-control.
I don't. It's bad. It is. We will even go out to eat, and what happens? The waitress. There's restaurants we can't even go to. Like we have not went to, because they'll sit down and.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, like it happens. Like even when we're not on set. I mean, it happens.
Yeah, then again, you're kind of a problem there as well. So it sort of goes like this. It's like okay, can I take your order? And the waitress says, "Can I take your order?" And Ashley says, "Okay, well, I can't have dairy and I can't have gluten." And I look at it, I says, "Ashley,
here we go.
No one cares. Okay, she doesn't care. Just order your food."
Well, then the waitress would start telling me her problems.
Oh, yeah.
And then it became like.
Now they're peeling Band-Aids back to show. Does this look like it's scabbing over right? I'm like, come on.
I was like, I didn't do it. At least
Don't talk about the bathwater. Just show me the baby.
I actually did that play, Baby at the Bathwater.
My buddy Matt Richardson used to tell that, and I go, man, that's so perfect. Nobody wants to hear about the bathwater. Just show me the baby.
Yeah.
What's your order, lady? You want a burger?
No bun.
That's funny. Yeah, it was just so. I think that was a hindrance on. I mean. As a performer, because it does you're
expending energy is really, I think, a lot of it what it is, for me at least. It's like I need this on reserve to do this. I didn't realize it either until I did it more, and it's a lot of work. We were just talking about this earlier. I mean, the prod life is a lot of work.
Right on.
But even the energy that you're expending, because Wormwood's End, it was like, this is great. I can just do this one thing. I don't have to worry about same thing with this. It's like, this is great. I got to just do this one thing. I didn't even want to make myself available to lug gear, and I'm a gear lugger. I'm one of those jarheads. But I was like, I need this energy because it's exhausting. When you're done, I was spent. We didn't. There's another thing about Bill's schedule, and I know you guys were there much longer than us. We got there, and it was like 3 to 5 hours, maybe. That was kind of the average. That's perfect for me, man. Like. Those 10 and 12-hour days, like, whew, it's hard for me to get through. On the lug end of it, I couldn't even imagine the mental energy that it takes to be in that performance space that long.
We were there about 12.
Yeah, usually,
10 to 12.
I don't, it was the putting away of the equipment at the end. It was everything. I will say this, I'm very thankful for, I would say most of the heavy lifting was done between Bill, Ross, and Chris.
Justin did.
Yeah, Justin was.
He was lugging those big coolers back.
Oh yeah, well that was all food stuff. Yeah, that was.
But it was a heavy.
But I can tell you that they pitched in and worked together to help get through the physically exhausting times.
Wyatt did too.
Wyatt was one of our.
Wyatt was a stalwart, man.
Cool, right?
I mean, he was there all the time.
We had
man.
Wyatt and Chloe were our two interns, and because of Wyatt, we got a lot of good behind the scenes footage. So
he was there every time I was there.
Really a nice guy.
Some of the footage was shot on the XL1.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah. So
all right.
and that's not like so. Some of this was a tribute to you, Jim. You know that.
I didn't know that, but I like.
So the whole concept. I mean, I'm sort of flying back to that time period when you and I started. I want to
late '90s. Yeah, right.
Was and we even got you to wear a Wax and Gibbous hat.
That was super cool.
I want that hat. I mean, I think I gave you a poster.
I'll get you one. I will get you one. I will get you one. I will get you one. Definitely.
So, it was sort of this exciting. I remember looking at that camera, the XL1, which is sort of a conversation piece in this film. In the advent of the camera, me looking at it going, I'll never afford one of those. We were shooting on Super 8mm
This is back
camera.
in the day. Yeah, great.
And then I bought that camera. Like as a prop, and I got it, and the thing worked. It worked. I'm like, oh, this thing.
How much you pay for it?
$100.
Holy shit, man! Hold on to that.
Well, I am. It's a prop now, baby.
Well, I maybe need to borrow that from you because I have some tape to transfer. I bought a deck and it failed after a couple run-throughs. But
well, I tell you what, like the tapes that were shot in that camera will also play on any mini DV camera.
Yeah,
yeah. So but I don't know if.
We're like nerding out now.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The XL1
I was thinking about what?
looks like a spaceship.
I'm like,
Come on, bring it back to Ashton.
Wait,
Come on.
no, I'm like, wait.
Shine the light back on me. Wait, he was saying it's a tribute to me.
It's a tribute.
And she wants to steal my thunder.
Listen, I'm zoning out thinking about what restaurant we're going to, what I'm going to eat. Like, I was zoned out. I'm thinking about food.
It's like, I can't have gluten. So Two Ticks and a Dog is Spirit Studios, more or less, right?
Cool, man.
But of course, I gave you a lot more clout this time than you did back then because did you see all the gear that was in your studio?
Dude, that was amazing.
We could have came up here and actually shot.
I had to empty the truck to get that. I mean, I literally emptied every piece of light stand out of that thing just to. Then we had to stick our expensive lights on these janky little crap stands in the back corner because we used all the nice ones in the shot.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Stu had a nice setup.
Yes, he did.
And he's wearing this mechanics gear. I could never.
He's got to be the everyman. He's the, and this is the '90s, right? You know what I mean? I think Stu is one of the most endearing people in the world, man. That's you got to admit. You look at Stu, like, this guy's a stand-up guy.
Yeah,
this is a guy.
Every guy wants.
Now I'm feeling even more nervous that I hope I did him justice to play it right because it was like.
You did. It was like Stu's that one. That's why if we do a sequel, you want to see Stu's backstory, right?
Yeah.
You want to see. There's so much, or a series, TV series.
Whoa, okay. No, we were going.
We've
that
talked
route.
about it. Yeah, we've talked about
it. I mean, I could see it being.
I'm gonna definitely need plastic surgery for that.
We were thinking like a Dawson's Creek sort of like thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like a. I love Dawson's Creek. I love. I wanted to live there.
It would fit because you'd have like these 40-year-olds playing these young kids in Beverly Hills 90210.
We're good. Well, let's do it. I want to do it.
I mean, it's there's a lot of future for hope. I think we will be able to continue on with this story.
That's a perfect segue because I have like my little notes, you know, and we talked about this faith-based idea. You know, you had mentioned like a faith-based thing, which I think is what's different. What I see that's different as a kind of a not that I'm a non-user of faith-based or Christian faith-based or Christian films or that type of story a little bit, right? This is a different feel because, and maybe that's the level of competition you're feeling too, Bill, where there was a certain like a feeling of like corniness.
Yeah,
like,
these movies suck.
These movies are corny. Yeah, which probably makes sense because you're talking about a lot of the pastors were trying to play the roles of.
Well, oh god.
Well, this had a certain cool factor to it, like because when you first approached about the other picture you mentioned about playing Jesus, I had a beard, my hair was long, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Should I keep this? And you're like, no, it's a different incantation. You can actually, Jesus didn't have a beard, and we were just kind of talking about that. And so when this project came along, I thought we were still on that project.
Oh, okay.
And then I started reading it, and you kind of given me the idea.
He's like, where's Jesus?
Yeah, right. Which subtextually, I was playing, like, I felt like I was trying to, like, in my head at least, to tell myself, Stu is the Jesus character of this project, of this story. I know that's probably not the right thing, but when we were having the conversation in the barn, you know, about this idea of, you know, the story, it's a story of redemption, right? If we haven't synopsized it, Ashley's character comes back to her hometown where she was a big star out in, you know, Hollywood land, and she had a breakdown, right? A very public kind of breakdown. And which is, I think this is kind of a cool connecting point too. How you guys were praying Offset as real people.
Yeah.
And he was kind of spiritually centering you or guiding you to get to that space to perform. The John Shostrom character is also doing the same thing for Ness.
Yeah.
As her father, he's the, you know, the quote unquote pastor, you know, the bringing her back to center. So I think that's kind of a neat setup there, you know, in that capacity.
I guess what we're trying to say in this film, right? I mean, it's if you watch television or you watch movies and go through Hollywood, and I'm not going to go into some big vilifying Hollywood sort of speech, but but generally, and I can't remember the last time I saw a positive figure in Christianity in Hollywood films. So if somebody, I think Rainn Wilson just pointed this out. He goes, I knew right away. I don't understand why. I knew right away when this character on The Last of Us opened a Bible, he was going to be a horrible villain, and he wanted to know why anytime somebody opens a Bible in a Hollywood film, this guy's going to be some zealot. But we have the town of Willow Falls and a bunch of Christians, and they're at the Fin and Feather having a beer on a Friday night, and they're having a good time. They're flawed, you know. There's all kinds of different people. Everybody's in a certain different spiritual. You know, we call it the trellis and the vine thing, where you're moving to the right, always from the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of light, which is heaven, to be with God. But this is sort of I think that we have been the worst PR managers for Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? It's been. You know, we've fought battles that were not the right battles to fight. We got Hollywood, you know, which is why now we have such a bad look in Hollywood. So this is it's not like that. You know, Jesus is about love, right? But if your friend, like you and I have had these conversations, Ash, if you are doing something wrong, right? It's not my judgment against you.
No.
It's
your duty to speak.
But it's my duty to say, Ashley, you know, it's if you're driving towards a brick wall, it's my duty because I love you to tell you that you're heading towards a brick wall. Turn around, go the other way, right? So that to me is love. Well, now this day and age, that is hate. Like people, if I say, you know, I think was it Penn? He had an amazing. He goes, and he's an atheist. I think it's Penn. The big Penn and Teller. He goes, how much would you have to hate somebody if you believed that there's this place called heaven, and in order to get there you have to believe in Jesus? How much would you have to hate somebody not to tell them that? You know?
Yeah, isn't that?
And he's an atheist. And it is. It's common sense. Well, what we're trying to say here is that, you know, look around. It doesn't have to be, you know, it's not a contentious thing to tell somebody about Jesus. These people believe in Jesus, you know.
And Jesus is cool.
Yeah, Jesus is cool. He freed me from my drug addiction, right? I mean, it's Jesus freedom is about living in the presence of God with his acceptance, right? That's freedom. Slavery is about needing to engage in sinful things in order to feel fulfilled.
Well, you're either a slave to sin or you're a slave to righteousness, but you're a slave in why wouldn't you want to be free from? Because I know when I lived my my life before salvation, I was chains. I mean, it was so exhausting. I mean, there was no peace in my life, and now there's peace, even in the midst of some of the darkest days, darkest things. There's so much peace. I'm like, I don't understand why anybody wouldn't choose Christ, but you have to know him to want to choose him. But there's so much hate when you try to explain, like, you're instantly shut down, and Hollywood does. So, people are thinking that, like, oh, Christians must all be these zealots. And so that's what I love about the Bible. Now we're humans and we have fun, and it just,
there's even pastor versus pastor sort of mentalities within the film between John Shostrom, your character Wally, and the Pastor O'Malley, who is more of a traditional thing. Like John Shostrom's at the bar having a beer and dancing with Mrs. Parsons, right? And along comes Pastor O'Malley, who's been at bingo gambling all night, right? And he's persecuting John Shostrom for drinking beer, for crying out loud.
Looking down on me because I'm hanging with the sinners.
Yeah,
in the
hanging
bar.
out with the sinners. Yeah, what do you say? Skullduggery.
Yeah. Skullduggery.
How'd you come up with that dialogue?
I don't know. I heard somebody say skullduggery years ago, and I thought it was funny.
He did a nice job in the scene. Don't again give things away, but there was a very emotional scene after that other scene, and the priest gives this, he kind of comes to the realization that, they're equals, or they're, you know what I mean? Like, he appreciated you.
That's right.
Which is kind of testament to what we're saying here today. Like, these type of movies can be cool. They can have an edge to them. They can have it doesn't have to all be, corny,
Corny, I tell you, some of
the dream sequences that you guys did. I didn't see a lot of that stuff, but I saw like some of the footage and some of the pictures and stuff, and behind the scenes, you guys setting up. I'm like, whoa, like, you don't really see that kind of. And I know your ability to kind of do the dark stuff and kind of be scary, if you will. Are those scenes scary? I'm kind of curious because I'm like, Bill, can we just let me just see like a rough cut of it, man. I just want to see it. I'm so curious.
So the dream sequence. There was 2 dream sequences in the film, and one of them is like Nessa's character is terribly drug addicted, and some of these experiences are some of my own, coming out of addiction, and it really messes. Your dreams are dark, like when you're detoxing, that sort of thing. So I really just sort of related sort of personal experiences over to it. And it's I showed it to my wife, and I looked at her and I said, I go, it's a Christian film.
But isn't that great? Because Christians are saved, so why not show it to non-Christians? So maybe give them some food for thought.
Well, it's just sort of to understand the power that comes along. Like, on my own, I failed. Okay, so my life sort of hit at the beginning of 2016. It fully crashed. So that's where I left off. Bill's mismanagement of his life managed to almost destroy his life. Wow. So, as far as I'm concerned, I died at the beginning of 2016, reborn as a new person through Jesus Christ, and it's been. I am so much better off today. I mean, I never thought I would be where I am today, and I don't believe I would have been if it wasn't for Jesus. So, that's where I left off. That's as good as I got, was the beginning of 2016. That's it, like, did you ever work a job? Anybody here ever been fired? Raise your hand. Wally, never? What, Jimmy? No.
In what?
He's worked for him. I'm not even going to look at you, Jim. You've worked for yourself.
I had a lot of jobs. To get here, I had a lot of jobs. I quit a job. I could have been fired.
I've been fired before.
I've been fired.
Yeah.
No shame.
No shame.
I should have been fired from my own life a long time ago because I mismanaged my.
This guy fired the old guy. Okay,
you
were fired.
Exactly. Yeah. Jesus came in and fired me as the ruler of my life, and now he manages. And guess what? I don't have to worry about nothing anymore. He takes care of everything.
That's so well. I love that.
But that's the point we're making of the film is that a look into the lives of Christians is it's messy. We're problematic.
Yes.
We have problems, and it's okay because you don't have. The idea is that because you have Jesus, you don't have to be perfect.
We're imperfect,
You know?
right?
Yeah. So that's where, and I'm off the soapbox now.
Well, I'm going to put you back on because I'm curious. Like, what is the future? Where are we going with the abiding nail? What do we expect? You know?
Okay, so I get a lot of questions, and maybe this little moment can clear some questions up because it's a lot. People don't
listen now. Get it all out because Bill's not answering any of these questions.
That's
again.
it. That's it. But
it's the exclusive.
Bookmark it. So people tend to say, "When's it coming out?" Okay, well that's. The movie business really doesn't work that way. So what you do is like as a film producer, you're a software engineer pretty much, and you have to write the software, create the software, package the software, and then you have to find somebody to buy it, right? Mm-hmm. So this is this is a path forward for us. Right now we're in post-production, as in what's today's date? The 30th of
last day of March.
Yeah. This will be kind of post-dated though.
Okay, post-dated. So we are in post-production sound at this point, okay, and right now we are. I'm doing the sound design, and I'm mixing and doing all the Foley work, which means every footstep that these guys make has to be put in. Oh. The clothing noises and every little sound. Most sounds you see are not sounds on set; they're actually put in there post-production wise. Okay. Then we'll have to bring these guys the stuff that I deem unacceptable as far as like it wasn't quite recorded well enough, or there were some like clothing noises on the laugh.
Wait. You told me I was perfect all the time.
You were perfect all the time.
You mean I gotta work more?
But guess what? Your clothing, your hairy chest, like rubbing it.
This is like another level of acting. You get in to start doing ADR.
ADR
is
awful. It's awful.
It's bad. It's bad.
You hold your
it's
breath.
Not that
you didn't
bad.
tell
You'll
me
be
I had
okay.
to go
It's
through
like
this again.
Don't. You gotta instill confidence in them. Okay.
It's fine. You've done all the hard work already.
Yeah, right.
So then we're going to bring these guys in for some ADR, some stuff that just wasn't recorded well enough, and then we'll color grade it. And we are well on track to have the film in a finished form at the beginning of summer, so that we can actually premiere it here locally, so that the people that worked on it and the people who want to see it can come and enjoy that night, red carpet night, and meet the cast and the crew who worked on it. But then, like, the idea is when's it going to come out and in what form is it going to come out? It's like we're going to be doing film festivals through the fall and winter, leading up to the biggest one.
Spring.
It's
in May.
May, and it's what's
in
it called?
Orlando, the International Christian Film Festival.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Oh, sweet.
And this is where this is where all the big deals get made.
Can we go to that?
You can. Yes. Yeah. It's a film festival. If you buy a ticket, you can go to it.
That's true. Okay.
I'm not digging into
we
my
want
pocket.
red carpet and we put us on a couple of panels, Bill. Come on. We gotta PR that thing.
So the idea is that we make the deal. We get some laurels on the film, and we make the deal, and then if the film gets picked up and purchased from somebody, from a company, maybe, I don't know, maybe, I guess my big I guess the big white whale is going to be Affirm Films, who's Sony's Christian film or faith-based family film division, who they also bought PureFlix. So if you sell a film to PureFlix, you're selling it to Sony Affirm Films. That's where you potentially can get theatrical, and that's the idea. So that's why we're mixing in the theatrical 5.1. We can go 7.1, but they told me 5.1 is well enough. But I want to be able prepared for a theatrical release, even if it doesn't get a theatrical release, But I'm shooting for the stars.
Yeah.
And then they will decide on the release date. Okay. But your best chance to see it is outside of me handing out screeners. It's going to be, it'll be the premiere that's here.
Oh,
that will
our
be
best.
Is there any date on that premiere?
No.
I keep telling people fall, because when we were originally talking, they're like, when's the film coming out? I don't know, fall.
Oh, I've been saying June or July.
But the idea is in summer.
We have to have this episode out before the film comes out.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're kind of deep here.
We'll do it together. Okay, I'm done.
I did it over here myself.
I'm done touching it.
The path forward is finishing the film, which we're well within schedule of that. We will then do a premiere, then film festivals, and then hopefully a very successful sale of the film. In which course I will have prepared. I'm working on another script called Sunny 16, and which is will be a fun comedy sort of film. So The idea is that if they're impressed with the Abiding Nail and what we've done with what's been given to us, that they give more, and we will be able to
have one in the chamber.
Yeah. So that's the idea. That's our plan forward.
Nice. Well, you answered my next question, which was like, what's the next thing kind of after production?
It always depends. I could say that we've had some discussion of trying to package a 3-picture thing where we do a faith-based horror, faith-based comedy, faith-based drama.
Is it all faith-based for you from now on, you think?
From now on, yeah. That's what I'm doing. Unless I get hired to shoot. I'm also a professional cinematographer, so if I'm hired to shoot other people's projects, which I worked for Josh Menning in the spring or in the winter of last year.
I don't think we mentioned that film.
What was in the
Christmas Angel?
No, it got changed.
Angelic Christmas.
And Angelic Christmas is the name of the film. I get hired to do work all the time, so I'll be happy to shoot. I just have a couple rules, man. I don't shoot nudity, and I won't shoot the occult. That's the only thing I won't do. So
you're trying to get my clothes off the whole time. I don't understand that.
For clarity,
take your shirt off, Wally. Come on, take your shirt off.
Up that shirt, buddy.
For clarity, I won't shoot the occult, but I will shoot nudity. So if you don't want to hire Bill, you can hire me.
I will refer to you. I'll refer you. Don't worry.
Thank you. Ash, what's next for you, do you think? I mean, is it Bill's next project, or is there other acting? Are you still teaching? Or are you still taking, what's the thing?
Yeah, so it would be Bill's next project unless it was on another. So I do want to stick in the Christian world. So that's kind of where I want to be, or unless it's like a very clean film. But yeah, so it's pretty much Bill. I have my own practice, my own business. So in the meantime, I'm working on that.
Talk about that a little bit, just for a second, so people understand.
So I have, I'm a doctorate. I have my doctorate in naturopathy. So I'm board certified, and I specialize more in functional medicine. So a lot of diagnostic testing, and then put people on really good nutrition plans to find out, after I find out what is going on with their body. So, nutrition, which I think helps, along with memorizing my lines. So if I don't have the proper nutrition, I'm not going to memorize well. So, in the meantime, I'm just focusing on that but acting is where my passion is and my heart. So, but it is also working with people. I mean, working with Bill for so long, like finding another director that so
comfort level.
Yes, so it's just, I'm hoping.
I'm building a cult.
I'm just
stop, because I just watched that David Koresh Waco thing the other day.
Branch Davidian.
Yeah.
I love watching things on cults, though. It's fascinating.
I know, me too.
I see the red flags when they come up.
You can tell she's a follower.
So I'm just hoping. I really, really like Sunny 16. I already read the first 4 or 5 pages. So I'm really looking forward to it. So I actually would like to find a coach that I could work with, and once that script's done, and dive into it months pre-production, even before we actually officially get it, greenlit.
Preparation is the key. How about you, Wally? Quiet Wally, red carpet Wally Valentine over there, man.
Yes. That depends on Bill. If he likes me enough, maybe he'll put me in something else.
I said Ollie. I'm sorry. I just got a puppy and his name is Ollie.
Hey, Ollie. Sounds like Wally. Pretty close.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I've been called worse, so we're okay.
Wally, are you excited for the premiere, for your family to see it and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, my whole family has been so supportive and excited about this whole process, and they keep asking me all the time, "When's the movie coming out?" And I said, "I don't know yet." I said, "Summer, hopefully." It's exciting to wonder what God has for me. I had no idea that this was going to happen in my life, that I would meet Bill and Bill would ask me to be in a movie. It's something I've always dreamt about and never thought would ever happen. So I have no idea what's going to come after this. So I'm ready for anything.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
It is. It's funny. We can make plans, but who really knows?
That's
what
right.
I mean? It's,
right. Minute to minute.
It really is.
In the moment.
It really
Let me ask you, Jim. Did you think that you would be in a faith-based film 10 years ago when we were shooting?
No. And anybody that knows me and knows my, I feel sometimes as I'm saying things even on the show, don't show your heathen side. Just settle that down, okay? No, not at all. And it's, but I guess if you go back and think about some, I was an altar boy. I was always, trying to be in a certain, and then you kind of break out of some of the constraints of some religious incantations. I'm not knocking any. I'm Catholic. I'm not knocking anything or shilling for that either. I don't remember who said it, but like, my God, Jesus is such a great example of love. My God is love. Like, my God is that. And so I think, even though I wear the chains sometimes of orneriness or tomfoolery or what some people would it's all based in love. And even going back to Waxing Gibbous, the message is, people are like, oh, and I used to think this was cool, and people would watch it and be like, man, when I watch that movie, it makes me want to have a drink, and it's in a bar, it's shot in a bar, and the whole deal, they're drinking and they're partying. But the last thing is the one of the guys, it's a 4-man kind of thing, he leaves his shot glass on the bar and kind of walks off into the sunset, and it's the message was always there, but the exterior was maybe beat up a little bit or a rougher kind of thing. So it makes sense long term for me. It makes sense that we'd be making this picture that's about love.
Yeah.
That's about love.
Yeah.
God, and the redemption that we've all experienced.
Yes.
I see it in many turning moments in my life. I look at it. I just found this the other day, and maybe apropos, I printed it out so I had a copy of it. Because my computer, if I ever, expire early, there's somebody get on my computer. There's so much stuff there we need to save. But one of them was a letter that I wrote my son on a flight home. I was coming back from somewhere, and I wrote 5 years ago. I wrote this letter to my son, and it was about that love that I believe we're all supposed to share and also protect and promote, because it is cool. A lot of times we think like, oh, it's not cool to be, we got to have this exterior, and life is such a weird, and the world is such a weird place now, right? We were kind of touching on that earlier. Like, that's what it's all about. The connectiveness of that love is what our moment to moment should be about, and looking back on that and looking back on that letter, that's what it was about, kind of talking about to my son. That was my son being born was like a changing point in my life, where it's like, man, this other shit that I thought was important, and you don't have to have children, I think, to experience that. That's just one of the turning points in my life. There were other points too. I have a story about Mike Hanton and I one time where, you kind of talk about the guy that you started from in 2006 in Apex 2 to the guy that you became. I had a kind of a real surreal experience going into a cave one time in the hills of Western Pennsylvania with Mike, who's been an actor on Bill's projects and mine, and we've all done work together. And there was no floor in this cave. This is not only kind of maybe a little bit of a metaphysical experience, but an allegory for life. Mm-hmm. There was no floor in this cave, very, it was all close to the wall, and the cave was wet. The walls were wet and curved. There were spiders in this cave that were white. They hadn't ever seen the light of day.
Wow.
To talk about how dark it was, and we had these mag lights, and, not LEDs at the time, but remember mag lights? You're like, oh, mag light.
Yeah.
And they're shining it down the floor, and there was nothing underneath us. We took some quarters and, some pennies, and I had a backpack, and I tossed it down to see, like, well, how far? Never heard him hit. It was like, really like, holy shit. And to get into this cave, you had to squeeze in. I'm a small human, so imagine how tight it was. It was like a rabbit's hole that you kind of went in. And once we got to this point to get down in there, and we got to this, initially there was a floor we were walking, a path, and we got to this point where there was probably from maybe a little bit further than you and I, Ash, where you had to kind of scale the wall and have hands on both things to press off and put your feet on these little footholds to kind of, and I was like scared you know what. Okay, like I felt death and a coldness coming from underneath, from this moisture, the geography of where I was at, and the spiders. And I said, dude, I don't think I can do this. I don't think, and he goes, well, we can, Mike is such an affable guy. And so he's like, we can go back, man. And I was like, I don't want to do that either. And I had a backpack and a flashlight. And I said, dude, I can't. This was Mike's cave. Mike had traversed this as a kid. He grew up in these mountains.
Oh, wow.
So he had kind of been through, and he, thank God, talk about like having a pastor or a mentor or a guide through your spiritual universe, right? He was like, you can do this. Throw me your bag and throw me the flashlight. He was already, he's watch me. And he went through, and I was like, okay. And he's a very athletic guy too, and I'm not too shabby myself. My arms are a little shorter though, and I'm not as strong as I'm like, man, okay, I think I can do it. So I tossed him my bag and I tossed him my flashlight, and he shone the light for me on where I need to put my foot, where I need to put my hands, and I went through this thing. And the conquering of that fear of death, because if I fell, I don't know who they were calling to go down that hole to find me. Like it was
scary.
Probably not going to happen.
Wow.
I would never do that today with my son, now that he's in my life. But at that point in my life, it's like, I don't know how long this is going to last anyways. And we're just kind of talk about being a wild man, kind of throwing care to the wind, and made it through. And the person that came out, and the very last part of that was a beam of light. It was like Mike was like, do you want to go on the top or on the bottom? I go, which way is which? Because once we kind of got out of that, there's a long stone trapped between two stones where you could go down below through the brush and through the leaves, or climb over top of this thing. And I just wanted wherever I could get out the fastest. And I saw our friend Eric Lugavich at the end of this little beam of light, this little hole, right? And I climbed, like crawling on my hands and knees towards Christ, towards the light.
Yep.
And the person that came out of that hole, not the same person that went in,
Yep.
Wow.
It
what do they call that? A rite of
experience.
passage?
Rite of passage, yeah.
Wow. Wow.
I think we have a lot of those in our lives.
Good allegory.
Yeah, that really is.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Wow.
True story.
Yeah, man. And I tell you what, having that calming
Thank you,
presence
Mike
like
Hanton.
Mike Hanton.
Yeah, thank you, Mike Hanton.
That's just sort of the nature of Mike. He's a very calming person. Yeah.
I hope to get him back in the mix on.
Me too.
I'd like to see Mike again.
We actually talked about Mike.
Yeah.
We have a villainous character in the Day of the Lord.
I think Mike would be good.
And Mike would have that sort of mellow, evil. I think he could give that wicked, mellow sort of like, kind of like Negan on The Walking Dead, bashing people with the baseball bat and being very charismatic while doing it. So Mike, we might be dragging you back into this.
Mike's one of those guys that can play heroic, or the hero or the
villain, right?
Very well. Yeah.
I've had him as both.
Yeah.
So
super. Well, I want to say this. Let's Ashley go kind of down the line. Like, give a shout out to your your business, and then Bill also. Where can we find more information? Wally, the same thing. Like, if you want people to reach you, or you want where can they find out about you guys other than this show that we just recorded?
Yeah, so if anybody is interested in either acting or doing nutrition, I do diagnostic testing, specialize in digestive wellness, all GI.
And I'm gonna hit you up on that. We talked about that.
Yeah, we did.
Yep.
I'm doing even more testing since, but I do Omex metabolomic tests, so I look at the pathways of the body and how well they're functioning. I do GI maps, and I also do genetic testing. And you can reach me at either my website, which is mission2wellness.com, or it's 412-881-WELL is the office phone number.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I just want to take my moment here to thank everybody who worked on The Abiding Nail.
Amen.
Even though I was a shepherd of the project, I couldn't have done any of it without the team, all of you guys. both on production and cast. It's a super important to mention that even though some of the crew aren't even Christians or have beliefs. Some of them do. Some of them don't know what they believe, but they treated it like this was a very important project, and I'm so grateful to that, guys and gals, that you treated it with the respect that you did, and that you made sure that everything was as best as it possibly could be. Because, again, like I'm a real fallible guy. I make a lot of mistakes, and I had a lot of good people helping to mitigate those mistakes and reaching out and fixing things as we went along.
And building rain machines.
Yeah, man. That rain machine was incredible.
Great.
That is a shout out to Ross Carlo, man.
That
the guy is
great.
absolutely
Not only
brilliant.
is he's brilliant in front of the camera, but what he can do behind the camera is amazing too.
Yeah.
So
And a major shout out to my buddy Bill Long, my assistant director, for carrying me through the process and making
good
it.
man.
Yep. And of course Jesus Christ for bringing me to where I am today. So.
Amen. Myself, I am actually retired, but I do volunteer at the Pregnancy Help Center. We have a Dad to Dad ministry where we come alongside young men who've never been fathers before, and to help them to understand what it means to be a godly father. So if you're interested in something like that, just please contact the Pregnancy Help Center in Youngstown, Ohio.
Is there a number or website, Wally?
There is. I don't know it on the top of my head.
Okay, no worries.
But yes.
No worries. Google that, though.
Yes,
That's
please.
wonderful.
Please do.
And boy, if you get Wally, what a blessing you will have. You're a real pleasure to know, my friend. Honest to God.
He's a joy. Wally is a
really?
joy.
A
joy.
Yeah.
He is. I talk about you. Don't I say that?
Yeah,
I'm like,
she won't stop talking about Wally.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I love him. I do. I love him.
Well,
I'm like, he has to come on, like in every aspect. Like,
I would love that.
Yeah,
I would.
Definitely made the process fun, and I concur. A calming presence on set.
Well, I wish I had more scenes with you, and I'm sad that I didn't.
Well, William,
I'm hoping we all get the band back
Victor
together.
Schotten, make that happen.
Is that you, God?
Remember what was that movie? What was that? Is that you, God? Weird Science. Real Genius. Real Genius.
So I'm hoping to get everybody. I really think what we had worked. So in the future, Jim, it's gonna happen.
I welcome the day. I also, because I forgot this earlier, I want to throw more kudos again on Wally. It's like a love fest over here, and Ashley
you guys
too.
are just too kind.
And certainly agree with everything that Bill said. What a great team and a great group of people all around. From top to bottom. There wasn't like a top to bottom. It was like a team. Everyone's had an important role on the project, and you treated it like that. And thank you, because I think sometimes Ashley makes a good point. The leadership kind of steers the ship, and there wasn't ever like an ego or an uncomfortable, dramatic. Something you get that sometimes, especially with dramatic people.
Yeah.
But some of the nonverbal stuff, that I thought was really like where you're not talking. Like our linguistics, our speech is sometimes a crutch, right? Because you can say it a certain way, and you can rely on the lines that were written and the meaning and the purpose of the context of that scene. But some of the scenes that I saw of us like off camera, where we're watching her or whatever,
yes, yeah,
I was like,
love that.
Oh man, Wally really like that's awesome. And
you
the
guys
same
were
thing,
real authentic. Like when. Yeah.
Kinship, man. I don't know. It's just like a cool.
It was
cool
even
kinship.
like at the Fin and Feather when you
that was
you
fun.
two like seem like old pal, like you've known each other, and you really. I mean, I know in the script you did, but it really came off. It was super authentic.
And you got me to dance.
Yeah,
I never danced.
Good.
You did good.
Never danced.
You can move too.
Now I have to dance with my wife after this.
Wally Valantine.
Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
But hey, before we end, I mean, we have to. Shout outs to the Conkles and the farm.
Yes.
Oh my gosh! I can't believe we didn't mention
You know what?
that.
I was thinking
they were cool
about
people.
it, and then the
I am
conversation.
telling you,
they were
they
amazing.
are the nicest people I have ever met.
And that farm was incredible.
It was absolutely beautiful.
They were so kind.
Yeah.
So can I touch on something real quick? Because there's a really great story here for this, and I really hope this makes the show because it's such an important. So I'm friends with the superintendent at Old North is Emma. Okay, and Emma's husband, when I met Emma, was dying of cancer. it was terminal, and they pretty much gave him you've got like a year or two left, and he didn't make it that long. He ended up in his brain, and I was doing the tech work at Dan, who passed, his funeral. I had the honor to meet. They referred to him as Big Dan or something.
Yeah.
General Dan.
Yep.
Have you met Dan?
No, I didn't, but
Okay.
she told me his story.
Okay, so and at the funeral, I'm walking down to prepare one of the microphones for the speaker, and Emma goes, Bill, come here. And she goes, and this is her husband's funeral. She goes, this is Linda and Keith Conkle. They own the farm. They own a farm that would be perfect for your movie. And she introduced me to the Conkles at her husband's funeral.
Wow.
And took the time in her grief. And because Dan, when he was alive, knew I was trying to make this movie. And Dan had said to her, well, Bill, she says, Bill's looking for a farm with a long lane approach. And he goes, I know just a farm. You tell him about Linda and Keith. So the introduction was made at Dan's funeral. So one of the last things Dan did was to make this film possible. So at the beginning of the film, we're going to dedicate the film to Dan.
Oh,
so
that's great.
Because without Dan, you got to admit, without that farm, it would have been hard to do, right, Jim?
Yeah, it's
what a perfect place.
I'm glad that you brought that up. I'm ashamed of myself that we didn't talk about that earlier. Like, that's a character in and of itself. The farm was like a character in and of itself. And I wasn't there the day you shot with the girl who plays
Lila.
Yeah. What an incredible young little girl.
Yeah,
oh my
that was
gosh.
her first. She got stung by a bee and kept acting. What kid can do that? Like
Yeah.
she
She's
never.
awesome.
She finished the
She's
scene.
prod life all the way.
Yeah, I tell you.
Yeah,
that was
she
one of
did
the
a great
best days.
No cream and
That was
sugar
a
in her
good day.
coffee, Wally. But that farm was like another character, and they were so welcoming to open them
and that
up,
was
their
not
home
easy.
up.
They opened their home up many days and for those long hours. And even our last day, they had a bonfire.
Yes.
Like, it was super. They were just the nicest.
That's when he told you the story about the grieving cows.
Oh, yeah, and I believed it. And I started to cry. I believed it.
And Keith was messing with
I
her.
believed
It wasn't even real.
Well, you heard this moo. And it was, well, this part is true.
It was so embarrassing.
It was called, it was so wasn't
good.
it like postpartum cow syndrome?
He goes,
Empty nest.
He says it's bovine empty nest syndrome, and he went into how about the cows are grieving, and Ashley's over there going, "Oh no, that's awful!" And Keith starts laughing. It's like, none of it's true.
Time out. Some of it is true. The cows do get really sad, and they were mooing for their young calves. They were doing that
my
part.
gosh.
But he called
You
it
gotta write that
empty
into the
nest
next one.
Was it an
Cow
empty
thing.
pasture?
An empty pasture syndrome.
He had wonderful
up on the
stories.
spot.
He made it up on
He
the
did.
spot.
Oh my gosh.
And I believed it. Remember when you almost backed the towboat, or what
Oh
was that
yeah,
thing?
the tractor.
That was, and Ross's face when he walks out.
He almost knocked the silo down.
Yeah, that'd have been a wonderful day.
You did?
I had to ride a tractor.
And
a
Ross was
big
trying to
backhoe.
instruct him.
And I've never done anything like that
That was
before.
terrible.
And so Keith was so kind. He took me out. I'm riding around on this thing, and I'm getting pretty comfortable with it, and we're good. Then we have to back it up into the barn because the scene was me pulling it out of the barn. And so as we're backing it up, I almost hit the silo. And I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean,
Ross's
that's the main
face
part of
coming
the whole movie. The scene right there is that big silo with the cross, and here I am. I'm going to crash into this thing.
So
Again, divine intervention. Talk about Jesus taking the wheel.
Inches away, buddy.
On our last day of shooting at the Conkle farm, it's sort of this chaotic rush to pack up and get the heck out of Dodge, right? We want to get home. We're tired. I got to be up at 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
And but just at that moment, Keith lights a fire, and there wasn't. I mean, and I think the point of lighting the fire was to get us all to stop, sit down, and have some conversation. And you were there for that.
Yes,
right?
I love that.
And I think it was just to say, stop, guys. Let's talk for a little bit.
Enjoy.
You guys have been working all summer. Let's stop and talk for a few minutes. And we did. We had an hour.
Yeah,
or
at
two?
least an hour. Yeah.
And it was a nice way to kind of like, because we got so much love for the Conkles, man.
Yeah.
Because they have so much love for us. And I think it's super important to. Thank you for mentioning, but you know.
Oh.
But
Love
that
him.
was amazing, like kind of send off, and I hope to see him at the premiere.
Yes, they
Can't
better be
wait.
there.
Can't
Yes.
wait.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, until the premiere, until the next episode, I want to thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
for
you.
having us. This
Absolutely.
was so fun. I'm so glad I get to see you guys because I
Me
feel so
too.
far away over in Pittsburgh land.
Pittsburgh land.
It's another country over there. Yeah.
The
pedos.
Yeah, I don't come in that often.
Did you say pedos?
Pedos. That's what we call them.
Pedos, the pedophiles.
Yeah, right.
No, Wally.
We call them yinzers. We always call the Pittsburgh folk yinzers. Hey,
Nice.
yinzers. Until the next time, folks, check us out. Share the episodes on theprodcast.net. Man, stay electrified and share the love. Keep it positive and keep it moving, and keep everybody on a path to Jesus, man.
Amen.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.